All right, welcome to Play PSVR2, the podcast. We are here with a special treat for you all today. Something you can sidle up beside and warm your bones and maybe hear a little song in the smoke. That's right, we have Jake, Colin, and Raj from 17-Bit, the developers of the upcoming PSVR2 launch title, Song in the Smoke Rekindled Edition. So guys, how are you doing tonight, today? I think it's
This
day for
morning.
you guys.
It's
Morning.
happening for us. Yeah.
Yeah.
Pretty good. We're very
All right,
excited.
awesome.
We just got pushed through. Raj has been killing himself in the Sony backend, getting us cleared for all territories on launch day, and it has not been an easy path, but we did it.
All right.
And everybody's gonna be playing this game very soon. So
Yeah. The world is better for it. Thank you for the
I
push,
can't wait.
Raj.
With each week, we're just getting more and more amped up, and just more games are coming out. Finding out that this is going to be a free upgrade to the PS4 version. That is incredible. Before we actually dive into a lot of the questions and learning more about your game, we always ask, we got gamer juices. In the first segment, mine was awful, so I'm going to crack open some milk tea. I don't know if this is going to be good or not. Is that Japanese? Can you tell, Alex? Is that
Got some Japanese characters, yeah. I mean, it could be.
Oh, so you guys, so you're based in Japan, right? So you can maybe read this, because I don't know what milk tea is, but I don't want to talk about myself. I want to know when you guys are coding, when you're gaming, when you're testing, all three of you, what is your go-to gamer juice?
I drink a lot of water.
Water again.
I love water.
There's
a lot of black coffee.
There's a Godzilla themed energy drink that you can get from certain vending machines, and I'm kind of into that. I don't know what's in it, but I'm into it.
Does it taste like Red Bull or Monster, or is it a totally different taste?
Well, they say it's inspired by Godzilla, so but it kind of tastes like a budget knockoff Monster, but I'm kind of okay with that.
Yeah.
They say Red Bull is like extract from like a bull's scrotum. So I wonder if the Godzilla energy drink is extract from.
That's exactly where my mind went to. I was like, but they can produce so much with each extraction. So
that's hilarious. So to hop into the game, I'm excited to learn about this. So I will admit, I have not played this on the PSVR, especially when I find out that things are going to be on PSVR2. I wait it out because I want to play with the newest and the best, right? So how about give me a high-level overview of what your game is about, what's the vision, and what can me or others who haven't played this game yet expect here on February 22nd?
Well, it's a long story. The short version is that when VR was first coming into play, we were very excited about the concept. The night that we got our first Oculus dev kits, Colin hacked away at it all night, and by the end of the evening, we were playing a little bit cross-eyed, but kind of versions of Half-Life 2 and
Unreal Tournament?
No, it was Half-Life 2 and Left 4 Dead 2. And we were all just like completely flattened and completely blown away. And the idea of not playing a game but being in one became this kind of immediate mantra in my head. And the real drive, like this game had already been kind of spec'd out as kind of a top-down kind of like action basher game kind of survival thing. But the idea of building a world that you could just sort of live in and spend time in, that could, you could have a limited amount of finite objects that behave physically. You understand inherently their use, if it's a stick or a rock, like you just sort of get it. And we could build a whole living world in this virtual simulated space that you could live in, you could make your way in, and so it becomes a survival game just by the fact that you are technically surviving in this world with the resources at hand, and sort of how to kind of like cook that up into a beautiful package that was like endlessly entertaining, and more than anything sort of behaved predictably, and you understood kind of why things were doing. I didn't think about video game stuff so much. Like I kept, with this mantra with the team of like, these characters should behave like a deer would behave. Like, it's not a game character. It's just like you are hunting a deer in the grass, and it's a real setup. It's a real deal. And this thing's, trying to avoid you. It's nervous. You're kind of sneaking up on it. Like you could just do these really deep engagements with this really kind of limited vocabulary set of like, yeah, you're hunting a deer with a handmade bow and arrow. Go. Like, and a million things could happen, in that construct. And so that's kind of where it all kicked off.
Yeah, that sounds awesome. And I think it's pretty unique. Like there's nothing in the PSVR library that I can at least immediately think of that this is so unique and different and really provides additional like gameplay and options for us to do. I noticed obviously when we hear survival, at least myself, I think of a lot of the horror genre. Like you're trying to survive and there's things jumping out at you and monsters coming at you. I don't think maybe necessarily this is that. Certainly correct me. But are there times where there is like tension or stress because it is somewhat survival, right?
I mean, it's a beautiful world, and this is one of the real tenements of the sort of aesthetic direction of the game too. Was like we wanted to make this beautiful, fantastic prehistoric world. It's not all dark and gritty and grim and this terrible place. I tend to like games that are a little bit more, not hellscapes. So I wanted to do something really beautiful and kind of nice. But yes, there are giant predators in there that want to eat your face, and like so you're going to have to deal with that. And yes, sometimes it scares the living shit out of you because these things are unpredictable and they are spawning. And like even as the designers, we don't know where they're going to be. They might be waiting for you. They might be stalking you. They wait for these terrible moments to kind of jump you. And yes, I mean our testers were constantly screaming, falling out of their chairs. Like it is a terrifying game sometimes, but a lot of times it's really nice. But you're always there's always a tension. Like it's a dangerous place, and you're literally surviving by your wits. You're like trying to scavenge enough food. You're hunting. You're trying to build up your camp. You're trying to explore and kind of figure out the space. And all the time there are these big scary things out there that want to eat you. And so it's this constant battle for survival.
And the soundscape is building with tension also, right? Like if something is intense, if you're being preyed upon, you may want to relax, but you can't. The soundscape is changing, and the soundtrack is a bit of a different approach, but it's just amazing because it's musical, but it's constantly shifting with everything that's going on in the environment. So whether you should be on edge or you can relax for a moment.
Nice.
So you guys mentioned you had like a top-down action type game spec'd out for this. I just thinking about your previous games, Galaxy, 2D arcade shooter, Skulls of the Shogun, turn-based strategy game. Those were 2D kind of top-downish view. This is a pretty big leap, right? It's like the first 3D game for your studio. And sounds like you already had the idea ready for another top-down action game. That's a big leap. What motivated you to suddenly go into VR? Did you get the VR dev kit because you were ready to go?
I mean, I've been fascinated with VR since way back in the day. Like when the first VR arcades hit, I was at them. I'm from Seattle area, and I grew up.
Virtual Boy? Did you have a Virtual Boy?
I actually never had a Virtual Boy, but
Colin did. All right.
Yeah, I've always been into this stuff. I went to talks back in the 90s where like VR was going to be right around the corner. It's going to be the next big thing, and I was waiting for a very long time. I'm a big fan of depth perception. I'm a huge proponent of depth perception. And I think video games, I mean, this is another rant that I'm not going to go all the way into, but I'll just touch on it. I think video games have lost their immediacy in terms of response and input since they've gone 3D, because you're not able to equally assess situations in a 3D simulated space on a 2D plane. Like 2D games are tight because they just, you can understand arcs, you can understand trajectories, like you're completely plugged in moment to moment. You don't have to do as much guesswork. Like you can understand the arc of Mario's jump or whatever. In a 3D game, you're like running and like, I hope I make this jump. I don't really know. Like there's a real disconnect that I have a real problem with. VR allows you to not babysit a camera, which I also hate in modern video games. I hate that job. I don't like it. I don't want to babysit the camera. I want to be doing my action stuff. I want to be in the game. And so VR completely sidesteps that by giving you the best camera that's ever been known, which is called your neck, which you have been using since you were born. It's super innate. You don't even think about it. Like it works perfectly every time. It looks exactly where you want to look every time. And you have 3D depth perception now. So all of a sudden you can play 3D games like as natively as you could do anything in 2D. So it's like this great step forward for video games. Like it's like, oh my God, I'm in this world. Things expect the way, they act the way that I expect them to. I can understand the arc of my bow as I'm shooting this arrow because I have that 3D depth perception. Just VR to me, like it is a whole new medium. And I've been doing games for a long time. All of us have been making games for a long time. We have a studio full of old dudes. But this was like, I saw this as a wave of like a whole new thing. And it was really interesting because we're all really good at making video games. We've been making video games for a long time. But making a VR game, turns out, is a whole new thing. There's all kinds of new standards. There's all kinds of stuff. And when we started this game 6 years ago, there wasn't a lot of answers about what does an inventory mean in VR? What does a survival game mean in VR? Like, we're looking at stuff, we're trying to get answers, and we're like, there's nothing out there. Like we had to kind of just like, well, was it this? Is it this? Is it this? So even with all of our, years of experience of making video games, this was a whole new challenge. But I was like, this is kind of a once in a lifetime opportunity to like be in that first wave of like figuring out what the stuff means and following it along. And, I was so excited about all this stuff. Like there was a time there where before the Oculus retail kit launched, when it was the DK1, I guess, and then the DK2, I was downloading every single demo I could find. I was playing everything. I was just like, wow, VR is the best, because it is basically being inside a video game, and it literally changes the entire landscape of everything. And so, yes, we were specialized in kind of these more arcadey kind of action games, but this was just too much of an opportunity to say no to. And then Sony believed in it, and they were like, heck yeah, this is great. We had a good relationship with them. We'd done a couple of projects with them by that time, and they were just like, yeah, here's the keys, go make it. And we were like, let's do it. That was it.
Cool. Yeah, so when you're mentioning, and something I don't make video games, so I don't really consider, but when you were talking about the inventory, and I'm sure a lot of the other aspects of your game, that VR was so new, there wasn't a status quo necessarily on how you do things. So as a developer, certainly that makes it much more difficult, but does that freedom, do you like that, or does it make it so much more stressful and harder because now you got to pull things out of thin air and experiment with things that maybe you don't necessarily know will work?
It's kind of both things, right? Like there's a stress, but there's also an excitement. After 20 years of making games, there's no rule book to go. Like you use all your experience that you've banked, and you can kind of, use as an anchor point. But it is doing things, fresh. After a while, video games have been pigeonholed into all these different genres, right? And that's why indie games have been so great, because you're trying different things that are not just like the one of the 7 different genres you want to fit into. And so it's cool. You have to develop an inventory, and you're like, wow, this takes you back to when you first started in the industry and everything was new. Your suspension of disbelief returns all of a sudden, and you're back into invention.
Yeah, something I always say was that this is easily the most interesting project I've ever done in my 25 years of making games. Like nothing was this interesting and challenging.
Anything was on the table. Like for a while, we were like, it's gonna use the aim controller. Like,
oh, wow, no way. That's
we had a prototype where we had this guy up and running.
And it was pretty great. Like it was with the sticks, it was way better than the Move controllers. Like I really liked this thing. And then, support just sort of faded for it. The point is, at that time, there were other people doing, solving the same problem multiple ways. You're like, well, these guys solved it this way. I don't really like that. There's some good takeaways in there. This element of that worked, but this doesn't really work. And these guys solved it a totally different way. I also don't like that. And so nothing was like, yeah, that's our guy. We should do it that way. It was just like, kind of like testing stuff and trying things and, reiterating over and over and over again. So it was a very long, drawn out, kind of painful process. And it was challenging and frustrating, but at the same time, it was awesome and super invigorating. So yeah, an amazing experience that I'll never forget.
Yeah,
it's one of my favorite times in like a video game life cycle, generational life cycle, where like the technology catches up with the ideas to a degree, but you're still figuring out how these things happen. So the games that come out aren't just clones of the most successful game that happened recently. It's nobody's done these kind of games before, and so you get the really magical stuff. Sometimes it can be kind of broken a little bit. There's some jank associated with it, but you still get to see like really fun ideas being experimented with. I mean, you think about like back in the day, there was tons of roguelikes, then there wasn't for the long time. Then they're having a resurgence again. Same kind of stuff is going to happen in VR, I imagine. But it's so exciting to see developers like you guys just throwing things to the wall, seeing what's sticking, and just having fun with the game design all over again.
I think if you look at our roster of stuff that we've done, everything we do is pretty progressive and takes risks, and we're always aiming to explore new territory and kind of do stuff in a different way that hasn't been done before, but is also really good and kind of an update of a modern, like a classic genre. This one's kind of outside of that because it was so new. But if you look at the kind of the stuff that we like to do, and like, my career, I was lucky enough to work on a bunch of really crazy stuff. Like I worked at Sega back in the day in Tokyo. I worked on Space Channel 5, which was a very weird, unique thing. I worked on Res, which took us forever to figure out what we were building. Yeah,
yes, that's like, I won't even get into it. That's one of our favorite VR games.
Yeah, me too.
So it's crazy.
Stunning. Yeah, I actually did the enemies for stage 1 and stage 2, and I worked on a bunch of the text and stuff like that.
No way! Oh my! I want to focus on your game, but holy crap, we need to have you back. Just that
I would love
alone.
to talk about it. Yeah, I would love to talk about it. That's a great
Just
game, and I'm
that
so
alone.
happy now because that game keeps being relevant. It keeps being in the discussion, and Mizuguchi-san's dream of continuing to work on this thing is. I'm so happy for him. So that's all great. The point is, and then after that, I worked when I worked with Raj at EA in Los Angeles, and I worked with Steven Spielberg on this big crazy new thing that never ended up shipping. But like most of my professional career has been done doing things that hadn't been done before, and we spent a lot of time scratching our heads, not knowing what we were doing, knowing we want to do something meaningful, knowing we want to do something different, but like really not having a template to adhere to and kind of look at the successes of other games. And so that's just that's my normal space. Like I'm used to this, and it's tough, and sometimes I got to talk the team into like believing in the vision, and people are like, I don't think that's going to be possible. I'm like, yeah, we'll get there. Like sometimes it takes longer than we would like, and we don't get rich doing this, but we always provide really cool games at the end of the day that are really well reviewed and really loved by our community. So I can't complain about that.
Yeah, for sure. This next question, going back to Song in the Smoke, is I guess maybe a two-parter. I'll tackle the first part, then I'll take Alex, or let Alex take the second. So I noticed that this is going to be for PSVR2 a free upgrade to the PS4. And so we as fans, as players, love this, right? Because we buy the game, and then things like Tetris Effect or Rez, you have to pay additional upgrade fees, or you have to buy the game all over again. So we love hearing this news. But from a studio, I would be curious if you wouldn't mind giving some insight on how you decided to make it free. Maybe it's that you thought that now more people will buy it, or maybe you're throwing the fans a bone and you're like, hey, if you bought it, you're get rewarded for this upgrade. What goes into a decision like that, and how did you determine that, yeah, we're going to give this a free upgrade for those who have already bought it?
Colin, you want to? This is kind of your initiative, I think. I mean, you were the one that drove it.
Colin basically told us if we didn't do it, then he'd murder us. So
but the thing is, we didn't know what everybody else was going to be doing. But I just kind of assumed that, hey, if we give folks a free upgrade for the game that they already bought, they're probably going to maybe play the game again. Or it seemed like, okay, so it seemed like the right thing to do. But that does not always line up with the correct financial thing to do. That is why we have Raj, who either will push back or let us go through with it. I felt like our PSVR fan base was so like great and super rabid and supportive.
Rabid is a good word, yeah.
And they're just so awesome. And I was like, I can't make these dudes pay again. Well, personally, I wouldn't want to do that.
And to Colin's point, I mean, financially, it's not a wise move, but really standing by the fans and delivering on the promise of the original PSVR. Like that headset is great. I don't think there's no love lost. Nobody really is a fan of the Move controllers. You need the sticks. Sony came through. The new headset is awesome. It's got so many great features. The Sense controllers are amazing, and they have the sticks. It's like, if you played it and loved it on the PSVR, then how could we not invite you back in to try it on PSVR 2? And Colin and the team knocked it out of the park as far as like the upgrade. So should it be a paid for upgrade as far as the content that's in there? Absolutely. But
I mean, I'm just personally I think like the enhanced studios, an upgrade fee where you've already paid for the base game. I think that makes a lot of sense. I am bummed. Like I just bought Moss 2. I don't really want to buy it again, but I want to play it on PSVR 2, so I'm gonna. Yeah. And I get it. And I know firsthand how much work and time it requires. But I would prefer if studios threw you a bone and let if you were already in the club, giving you a discount on drinks would be nice. I don't know.
But let's be clear. Like getting something from PSVR to PSVR 2 is like not turnkey. Like it takes a lot of work. Yeah. And like it may be the case where the team is like not like the team that made the original game is on something else, and you need to get some other guys and ramp them up, and it's going to cost more because they're not familiar with the code base. There's a million things that can affect that decision, and I think we basically just lucked out.
Well, we'll see. If it's not here next week, you'll know why. But yeah, if you're a gamer and you like this game, you should definitely play it. And it's a great excuse to jump in and play it again, because it is a totally different game at this point. Like we've added some features that just fundamentally change the flow of the overall game, and it's so much better than it ever was before. It's not even funny.
I mean,
I will say.
Go ahead.
Oh, go ahead, Colin.
Okay. So I think another reason why we were really pushing towards the free upgrade, because we were like, well, we're not going to do that much to it. And so
I remember those days.
So we got the game ported, like we got it up and running on the PSVR2, and it was pulling like 500 frames a second. Like it was the dev kit was just laughing at us. It was like, really? Wow, good, real challenging for me to run this game. I kind of felt guilty. I was like, well, maybe I should try to put some more stuff in it. And then I just kind of kept going on nights and weekends, just trying to sneak in effects. Like there was a lot of stuff I'd wanted to do before with effects, but we had to hold back because of, we also shipped the game on Quest 1, Quest 2, and the baseline was always PlayStation VR. We weren't going to do a Quest version until maybe like 2 years into development.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh my God, how are we going to do this? Because Jake refused to compromise. I was like, we got to make the levels smaller and block the sight line so you can't see too much, because our game is massive. You can just, go to the top of the big hill and just look everywhere, and there could be anything anywhere at any time. And Jake was like, no, it's got to be like that on the Quest that has like the power of like a cell phone. So we made it work. It nearly killed us, but basically the PSVR was always the baseline for this game. So when people are like, it's a Quest port, I get mad.
No, yeah.
I bled making that port down to the Quest.
And I think the thing that kind of ties it all together is, Jake spoke to it. Nobody should go be an indie game maker if they're chasing money, right? Like, I mean, this is not the way to get rich. We are game lovers and game makers because, it's the passion that drives it. And so literally the whole team just didn't stop working on it. It started out as like, okay, let's get it on that platform so we can stay relevant and get, into the new hardware and the stick controllers. But it turned into this thing of like, if we're going to do it, are we doing this just to, clock in and clock out? Or are we doing this because, we want this to live on forever in its best form?
Once we got
it was an addiction. Like it was a slippery slope. And then people had, had some time off of it. And, there was burnout at the end of the project. Obviously there always is. Everyone was like, never want to fucking see this thing again. But after some time, and then all of a sudden it's like this new box of toys, and everyone was like, "Oh, and we had the stuff that was kind of half finished. We kind of didn't have time, or we didn't have quite the power to pull it through." And then like, we could plop that back in. And
right. So Jake, can you talk about the free jump, the free jump mode? Because Alex was our lead programmer. Alex we
were done to submit, like literally done. Sorry, go ahead.
Well, yeah. Alex, our very passionate lead engineer, who's a brilliant engineer, and it was a big part of Song in the Smoke. Towards the end of wrapping up the port, he was just like, God, everybody on the forums, we have our Discord. He's like, everybody wants the same thing. Everybody wants free movement. And we had actually experimented with it a long time before, but like so long ago that we were still even suffering from motion sickness as a studio. Like that, those days are long gone now. Everyone's got stomachs of steel. And I really liked it. I thought it was really cool, but like we were like, the nav mesh is tricky and this and that. There's all these edge cases and like all this stuff. And we're just like, man, we just don't have time. So we took it out, and it was just like manual, you point, you have your arc and you jump. And so like we're finishing the game basically.
So done.
And Alex is like, I can do this. I can make this happen. We're like, I was like, dude, really? I'm like, I believe him because he has never failed me. But I was like, that sounds like a stupid thing that you're talking about right now. But I want to believe because it's awesome. And he's like, let me do some tests. And we tested it. And, Colin's like, you can jump off cliffs and like shoot a guy in the face and like, what? And I was like, you're right. This is pretty cool. And then we started playing with it and we started cleaning it up and we kind of talked and some new tools came online and we were like, this is a stretch. This is a gamble, but everything in this business is always a gamble. But we're like, man, this is a really cool feature. And if we can pull it off, it's going to take a couple different guys doing different things. But if we can make it happen, and we did, and it's awesome, and it literally changes the entire game because now you can slip and fall. Like we had it on these like safe little. You basically couldn't fall off stuff. Like you would go to the edge of a thing and just that'd be it. So like we have all these like little cliffs and stuff like this, and like little paths to like power ups and things like that, little herbs and spices and stuff like that. And before you would just kind of wantonly sort of click through it, get your stuff, and get back out. Now you're like. Like, I'm scared. I'm scared. Make this jump, and like it's a big deal. And you get up to the thing, and like you can slip and fall off. And so all of a sudden, the game is like this whole new like relationship with the environment and the intensity of the whole thing. Like it becomes a first-person shooter in VR, only in a way that we never had before. So there's this whole like this fluidity of movement and this kind of like natural, state of being with the space. And now we also have this kind of real-time grapple where you're looking with your eye tracking, so you can like run and look at an edge, and as you get close enough, even if you're in the air, you can get close enough to like let it activate, you can pull yourself up, so you have way more movement and agency in this space, which is really important because these animals can also go anywhere you can, and they're large and trying to kill you. And so running around and jumping and climbing off stuff and running and jumping, like it's this a whole new element to the game that's like my favorite part of the whole game now, which is crazy because we built this thing over the course of years, and like it just went like 200% better with this crazy last minute Hail Mary we made. But sometimes you get the touchdown. So
that's great to hear, because I mean, I saw like a video you guys just released recently, I think, that showed like the free jump in motion. I was like, hey, that's a really nice feature. A lot of people like locomotion. It's just enhanced locomotion, but that's cool. But you guys explaining, I was like, no, now you're moving around in the environment rather than like shuffling around in the environment, and you can jump and clamber. It makes it like almost like a free running type thing, right?
Yeah. I mean, of course, we have a lot of options because, VR comfort levels are not like personality quirks. They're like, some people literally get sick from certain things. Everybody's got their own little recipe of like what they can handle. Personally, I'm totally like rock solid stomach now with VR, except I don't like smooth turn. I still don't like it. I'll either do, turn myself, or I'd use the snap turn. That's the one thing that just kind of, sets me off. But now I can do these big running jumps, and my stomach doesn't go flying through my head when I land anymore. It did early on, but yeah, it's fantastic. So I'm looking forward to everyone who's played the game before, people who haven't played the game before. I do recommend turning it on the free motion and seeing if you can handle it, because it is awesome.
Oh, that's great. So talking about the PSVR2 version now, so what element of the PSVR2 version do you think is the greatest enhancement over the PSVR? We'll go ahead and take the free jump and the eye tracking clambering out of there. What do you think is the biggest improvement you've seen taking this to PSVR2?
I mean, Colin went crazy with the visuals, and the headset is so nice that the field of view is bigger, the resolution is much higher, the frame rate is just like buttery and super smooth. And so, I mean, I remember, I went through another feature, which I'll get into, is this idea of a Jake mode. And we have a reputation at the studio of making games that are too hard, because I'm playing it every day, and I'm like, I always want to be challenged. And so I'm like, make it harder, like all the time, like, I'm playing up here, but like new users are down here, and I want to be able to appeal to everybody. And so I was like, early on, we're like, okay, we're gonna make a Jake mode, and he can go nuts, and he can have it as hard as he wants, but we can also make a game for normal people too. That'd be great. And so where was I going with this? Jesus.
It's hard. It's hard, but it's balanced.
While he remembers that, just so you know, Jake also has menu items on many of the restaurants here in Kyoto also, because Jake wants it his way and convinces them and turns them into believers in his way. So you have like Jake burritos and Jake style on many menus here too.
The point is, yeah, the difficulty thing came online, and it's a big difference. There was another point I was getting towards. I forget.
Your favorite part of the PSVR2.
Oh, right. The visuals though are really I was playing Jake mode. That's what it was. I was going through the whole game, making sure we were doing another fine tuning, we were balance tuning, and kind of like reading all the feedback from the users over the years on the Discord, and kind of like trying to do what we could to kind of make this the ultimate version of the game. So I played through the whole game just recently in super hardcore mode with the free movement on, and it was like awesome. It was like the best experience of me playing this game the whole time we've had it. But I remember so many times just walking around just being like, my God, like this looks insane. Like, coming from spending all that time in Quest and even PSVR, even the high-end PC version, the PSVR 2 version just destroys everything. Like, it's so beautiful. Like, the fidelity is so high now. And like Colin added all these subtle things, and we added so much more fidelity and just like little details, but there's so many of them, they all add up to just like, oh my God, this is just a world apart. And I remember just walking around going, this game is beautiful. Like, I'm so happy to just be here and just be spending time in this space. Like, it's so great. But
it's a big open world. Like we're simulating these big levels, and we have like full day-night cycles, and you can go anywhere. Animals can pretty much get to anywhere you can, so you always got to be on your toes. So I just kind of love getting in there and like seeing how the weather changes, or like, you know, trying to like track animals like through their footprints. And it's just like you really feel like you're in a world where other stuff is happening, regardless of you being there or not. Making trailers for this game is extremely difficult because nothing is scripted. Like I just put on the headset and I start recording and I hope something interesting will happen, and it usually does. But I'm never ever able to recreate it. Even if I like do a save game beforehand, if I go back and reload the save, the hyenas are like going to do something else or like start stalking me in a different way. So it's just like this wild, big open simulation, and I just love it.
And you need to understand, like, Colin's our technical art director, and so he's in terms of shaders and sort of, you know, polygon counts, and like he's kind of the head of the visual, like the technical visual side of things. And he, you know, we squeezed him and we broke him, taking that PSVR game, pushing it into Quest 1, and like everything going this way, you know, and everything being like less and less and less, and like shaving this off, shaving this off. Let him go to sleep for a while and rest, and then like, hey, sky's the limit, go the other direction. He was just like, you know, he just went insane, and he's like, what if we do this, what if we do this, and he's just like throwing stuff in, and we're like, I don't know if, you know, and he's like, let's just break it, let's go as far as we can and break it, and then we'll kind of come back a little bit. I was like, that sounds cool. And so
Scared the crap out of me on a regular basis.
but
like that, I'm
all those little things coming together, you're like, okay, it was totally worth it. It's insane.
Yeah, I'm super excited. So, Colin, certainly you could probably attest to this. So, we obviously haven't tried the PSVR 2 yet. You have played it on PSVR 1. You designed it for PSVR 1. Now you got to see it in PSVR 2. It clearly sounds like the resolution jump is astronomical. From a scale of 1 to 10, when we first put the PSVR 2 on and see the visuals and experience that atmosphere, when we're used to PSVR, like 0 to 10, how floored are we gonna be, do you think?
Okay, so let me give you my answer from when we first got the headset, and there weren't any other games for us to play really, so we just kind of had our game. We're still kind of developing in a vacuum. We haven't played anyone else's games yet, so we don't know. But the first time I put it on, I was like, oh yeah, this is okay. This is pretty good. Like this is like objectively better than Jake, what's that, like the fancy Vive you've got?
The Index.
Yeah. I was like, this is like better than the Index. And like the OLED is really nice, and the refresh rate is great. You can hit up to 120 on it. We run at 90.
And the seal around your face, like it's such a little thing, but it's pitch black. Like when you have the thing on, even if the lights are bright on, you can't see anything. It is pitch black.
Even with glasses, that's good to know for us glasses wearers.
But from that point, I was like, oh, this is good. Like the good wide field, like this is good. But so I would say like at that point, it was like a 7 out of 10. I was like, this is good, but it's not the quantum leap. Then we got the eye-tracked Foveated rendering working, like late in the game, like about like maybe like a month before we were done. And we turned it on, and I was completely floored. I could not believe the jump from the eye-tracked stuff to just the standard, you know, just standard pixel density across the whole screen. That is such a game changer. And the eye tracking is so fast and responsive. You can't break it. Like I was like, I'm just gonna move my eyes around real fast, and it's not, no, it'll track it. It knows where your eyes are. That blew me away. Like that, when you put that thing on for the first time and you go into a 3D world and you see the eye track, the Foveated rendering working, I mean, you can't really see it. It's just a transparent effect. It's incredible. That's the killer feature by far for this thing.
So then for someone like me who hasn't jumped in yet, do you think I should play it on PSVR and then jump to the second version to appreciate the jump? Or do you think I should just wait and just go full bore once
jump
I
into
get
the Ultimate Edition? Yeah, just jump into the special edition.
Yeah,
There's
just
no
jump
reason
in.
not to just be like, all right, get into it. You know, the only thing I say is that I think you should play on Jake mode, which is very hard. But I think if you haven't played the game before, you should probably start on a more normal difficulty, wrap all the systems into your head and kind of understand the systems, and then maybe go back. Whether it's a second playthrough or if you kind of start a new playthrough, you know, deeper into the game, it really does change kind of the fundamental core of the experience in that. And I've said this a couple times now, but it's worth noting. This was a big game. Took a long time to build. It was very challenging. and it was built of lots of different components that were coming online at different times. And so it was a survival game. We had all these cool ideas of like, you know, what that means and how these different systems can work, and how, you know, what types of potions you're going to make to stay alive, and how, you know, tiredness is going to affect you by the end of the day, and like all these kinds of different things. But there were so many of them. When they were all turned on, it was just too much for new users. There was just too much going on, and it was too many things for people to kind of deal with. And so we had to go in and just kind of like knock each one of those things down until the point where some of the systems don't really need to exist in the easier difficulties. You're like, like you never actually end up using this or this or this or this. But I was like, okay, this is the price though. Like it's not easy making a big complex game like this, and of course, not every single system is going to work perfectly in tandem all the time. That being said, in the super hard mode, Jake mode, all those things are up and active, and they all do work together really well when they're all turned on and cranked up all the way. So it becomes a very different experience. And so, you know, the point is, for people who have played the game, even if you haven't finished it yet, on the new mode, I highly recommend you play that really challenging mode. And just, I mean, it is more challenging, it's more demanding, but it's also way more engaging and just really, really interesting.
Please tell me it's actually called Jake mode.
Doesn't really have a name. It's just a big skull, big earrings floating behind you.
Dang. Okay. That's all right. Next game, I expect to see an actual Jake mode. We'll know what you mean. Everyone else may be confused, but I'll be ready for it.
The game will be called Jake Mode. We'll be looking forward to Jake Mode VR. Yeah.
I think our new standard of just like, yes, we are going to have this in from the beginning. You know, you can make it as hard as you want. It's fine. You don't have to worry about things, knowing that we're going to have this natural ramp of difficulties planned from the get-go, instead of just letting me go crazy and making something no one can finish. So.
And there are players out there who are ready for that challenge and actually wanting it. I mean, people requested it, so we formalized it.
Yeah.
So.
All right. Well, now we're going to move into my favorite segment, the dad joke / riddle section. Real quick though, quick question. You're about to go on a week-long solo survival retreat. Your MP3 player can only hold one song. What is the song in your smoke, guys?
If I was going to go on like you're saying, like this is a survival sort of thing, like really?
Yeah. Plane crash lands. You lose all the data, but like 5 megabytes.
Right. So, I mean, I don't have a single song in mind, but for me, I would want something kind of early 80s, late 70s Jamaican dub that's just going to like, everything's going to be okay. We're going to get through this. Something I could just sort of leave on. It's got a nice beat, and it's just sort of going to, you know, let you relax a little bit while you huddle around the fire, hoping for some warmth. I wouldn't want anything too dramatic or scary or sad. I would want something reassuring, I think. Maybe some Tom Petty. Steely Dan, maybe?
Steely Dan. Colin, Raj, you got anything?
I can never remember any of his track names because you know, Richard D. James is interesting, but in Aphex Twin, there's one of those tracks on Drux, one of his albums. I travel a lot, and a lot of times it's kind of stressful and long, and so I know I can put on this one track that has like, it has piano and crazy drums and everything into it, but it takes you on a journey that like helps me to just kind of center myself. So I probably choose that.
There's one Aphex Twin track that I could see. Is very happy. Okay. Anyways, Colin.
I've been going down the city pop, the Japanese city pop rabbit hole recently. So the only answer I have is Tatsuro Yamashita has a track called Merry-Go-Round, and it is the smoothest thing, and I could just put it on for infinity and never get bored of it.
That's a very good song. It's a very good song.
I'm making that note. It's called Merry-Go-Round by Tatsuro
Yamashita.
Tatsuro.
It is so.
He's the Japanese Michael Jackson. He's a legend here. Like I had never heard of him until I lived here again. But he is a smooth operator for sure.
I love that Maria Takeuchi song.
This is her husband.
Plastic Love. Yeah.
Yeah. He is her husband. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Then I need to listen to it. I remember reading about him.
Plastic Love's a great song. That's one of my favorites.
Yeah, such a classic out of nowhere, right? Okay, here we go. This is the quiz. So you guys just give me your answer, let you know if you're right and wrong. If you get, we'll say 3 out of 5, I'll send you guys an autographed picture from one of our leftover Christmas cards, if that sounds good. So look forward to that. This is what's up for grabs. All right, if you get it right, you're going to get a ding dong. If you get it wrong, you're going to get a buzzer. All right, you able to hear that? That sound good? All right, let's go quick. You're stranded in the wilderness with one match. There is an oil lamp, a fireplace, and some kindling wood. Which do you light first?
Kindling wood.
Is that your final answer?
That's my final answer.
Wait, an oil lamp, a match, and kindling wood?
No,
you're stranded in the wilderness with one match. There's an oil lamp, a fireplace, and some kindling wood. Which do you light first? Colin?
I'm going to have to say oil lamp.
Wait, am I allowed to?
Yeah,
No,
you can.
Is this Jake?
No, just
No, anybody. Yeah, come
You
on.
gotta light the match. You gotta light the match first before
No,
anything
the match
else on
comes
fire.
with it.
That's it. It's a
Yes.
match. The answer's a match. It's a riddle. All right, that's 1 out of 5. 1 out of 5. I think I got
Ugh.
5 here.
F.
Maybe you'll get a bonus question. I liked your thinking, Jake, but match. Colin saved you on this survival trip.
I said match.
Second-
You know what? Colin can take the credit.
I get you. This one is just more of like a riddle joke, a dad joke. How do you get into the annual archery champions ball?
Aim
What's
high.
the trick? Aim high? Oh, that's a good one. It's not the
Shoot
answer we're
your way
looking
in.
for, unfortunately. Shoot your way in. Okay, Raj, you got anything?
Keep your eye on the
Be
ball.
on target.
It's unfortunately that's a buzzer. You have to pull a few strings. You have to pull a few strings.
I
Come
would
on,
have got
guys.
there.
Come
would've
on,
got
guys. All right. This one's a bit easier for you, a bit easier. What do you call a bear? You're walking through the wilderness, you run across a bear with no teeth, you escape, and you're trying to tell your friends what you saw. What do you call a bear with no teeth?
Barely.
Grin and bear.
Haribo.
5, 4, 3,
Barely.
2, 1.
Grin and bear. It's, I don't know.
A gummy bear. Come on, guys. A gummy
Oh.
bear.
Just a little tiny aside, a little shout out to our AI programmer on Song of the Smoke. He's no longer with the studio, but he's a good friend and a brilliant guy, Akeen, and he was our AI guy on all the creatures. And we have a big bear in the game, and he was the undisputed legend of all time bad dad jokes about the bear stuff. Like, you remember how every day he would slide him in? I was like, how do you do these things? It's amazing. Just always. Anyways, shout out to Akeen. He was awesome.
Yeah, if
Would
he
you
was
say his jokes were unbearable?
Yes, quite often. They were
There
like
you go.
unbearable dad jokes. Yes.
All right, here we go. Here's another one. Did we send you these questions ahead of time? It's okay if we didn't. Yeah, I'll cut you some slack. Maybe 2 out of 5 will do
no,
this
we
for
would
you.
have done better if we'd seen it.
Yeah.
How rare is it when you die by falling in your own campfire? How rare is it when you die by falling in your own campfire?
In this game or in real life?
In real life?
Riddle, right?
Well, I'd say.
I mean, I have been drunkenly, dangerously close a couple
Oh,
times.
geez.
I wouldn't say it's unknowable.
I would say it's medium rare.
Oh, this guy.
Oh,
Dude.
medium rare. It is medium rare. If you die in your own campfire, it is technically medium rare. I think you put that fire out at some point with your own corpse. But, all right. Colin coming through. This guy's Googling hot. That's what I feel some Googling coming from you. What is
I've
that?
seen his hands. No.
Is that 2 and 2? So is this the one that decides it?
The eye tracking for his web
Eye
browser.
tracking. He's looking at Google and it's telling him the answer. It's that AI. All right, here we go. How does someone get over their fear of campfires? This is the last one for the signed autograph picture Christmas card. How does one get over their fear of campfires?
Above it, rise above it.
Rise above it. They learn to blank to them. 5, 4,
We're
3,
so sad.
2,
Oh.
1.
No signed Christmas card for this
Rise
team.
They learn to warm up to them. There's no hope. There's no way you guys could have gotten these right.
Well-
Sorry, I thought Adam was going to send you the questions at least.
No, I
but that's
want it to be
okay.
difficult. But here, I will throw you an easier question. And as we wrap up, we want to honor your time. I want to give you one last opportunity to talk, to brag about yourselves. Why should the listeners who either haven't played this game or have already played it, and maybe why should they go back and play it again in PSVR2? Why should we approach the game Song in the Smoke and play it day one with the PSVR2?
The top reason that I can think of is 2 of the biggest VR publications, Road to VR and Upload VR, both awarded us PSVR Game of the Year when Song in the Smoke came out. So that was the base version. It's twice as good now, so we should get twice as many awards for this game, and you should play it.
That was the correct answer. That puts you over the top. What do you got, Colin?
I don't think that there's anything else like it at launch in terms of like games where you can go in and just have this big open world survival game and just have. I don't think of anything else that is like our game that is going to be there at launch.
There's other survival games, but they're all, you know, either PC or Quest games first, or
Right.
not even Quest, but like, you know, native PC versions or whatever flat games brought over to VR. I do think we're still the only like from scratch, from the ground up VR only, you know, really based around all those VR systems that are kind of really well incorporated in, you know, from the get go.
And if you need a ease of entry to compel you, we have a demo. We made a demo. It's
Yeah.
in a headset. Just go ahead and jump in and try out the game. We wanted to make sure that people, you know, who wanted to give it a shot could just jump in and check it out. So
one thing I want to mention is the fact that it is long. Like it is like a 15+ hour game. And it is beefy. It has a lot of systems. It is not like a gentle hand-holding VR experience. Like if you are looking like it, this is a full fat game. And it's meant to give you quite a bit of time to enjoy it.
Your parole guys. Someone was like, "This is a real ass." Oh, it's John Eternal.
yeah,
Our producer at Sony in Tokyo here. He's like, "This is a real ass video game." Or what do you call it? Like,
yeah, big ass or something. It's real. Don't let the non-premium price fool you. This is a premium game. We just wanted to make it accessible for people. But it bats way above its belt.
Punches above its weight. Punches above its weight. Yeah, it's a
We're
a
so
whole
good
ass
with
real
jokes
ass
and
game.
phrases.
Yeah.
We'll just stick to making games.
Yeah.
Listen, 17-bit, we want to thank you so much for joining the podcast. I can honestly say this has been maybe, I think it has been my favorite interview of a studio that we've done, and we've interviewed a lot of studios. You guys are absolutely wonderful. I cannot wait to play this game. Thanks for sharing about the PSVR 2, about Song in the Smoke, all the enhancements and features that are coming to it. Song in the Smoke, a launch game. Everyone needs to play again or play now for the very first time. You can find this on the PlayStation Store. Go ahead, purchase it. It has that PSVR 2 free upgrade. And again, thank you guys so much for joining Play PSVR 2, the podcast.
Happy to be here. This has been awesome. We had just as much fun as you guys did, even though we lost all your questions.
You got the last one right. That's a cause for celebration.